Welcome into AWA Unleashed. We are the self-proclaimed #1 podcast and video stream dedicated to the American Wrestling Association. I say it, but after this weekend, I've heard other people say it. So it's not just ego talking, it's fact, and it's because of you guys. So seriously, thank you guys so much for allowing us to be a part of your, podcast streaming, part of your rotation, whatever. Great weekend this weekend. We're still living off the high of Waterloo. So that being said, I want to bring in my friend Mick Karch, and I'm glad to call you a friend, but there's somebody else I have to throw it to. Wally Carbo. Wally Carbo, what is going on? Something seems off. Wally Carbo, what is going on?
George Shire has been suspended for this week. There was a fist fight in Denver, Colorado. Shire got into it with some guy claimed Pat O'Connor was the first champion. Shire hit him with a left hook. He was pulled out of the building, and I had to suspend him for a week. But Shire will be back, and Pat O'Connor was not the AWA heavyweight champion of the world.
Wow. Well, that being said, yeah. Well, thank you, Wally. Well, that being said, it looks like it's just going to be two of us this week, Mick. So what are we going to do? What are we going to do this week?
Now we're putting you over, pal, because you had your first excursion to the Dan Gable Museum, the George Tragos Thesz Hall of Fame, the professional wrestling wing in Waterloo, Iowa, for the annual July Confab, the Hall of Fame event. And I know you were like a kid in a candy store. So we want to talk all about that, some of the experiences, some of the guys you met. We're going to talk about how we got our podcast put over big time down there in Waterloo. So let's get going here. First of all, explain to the viewers, there's the museum in downtown Waterloo, right near Doughy Joey's.
Yes, pizza spelled P-E-E-T-Z. I told my daughter, I'm like, we went to this place called Doughy Joey's, and it sounds like it would be like a male strip club for chubby people, but it's really not. If I was a stripper, they would totally hire me at a place called Doughy Joey's.
If you were a stripper, I would not be doing this podcast. But let's get back to your experience. First of all, I got to tell everybody how this actually came about in the first place.
Yeah, it was something that we had kind of been throwing about, just you and me and George. And I think, we kind of been, talking, hey, it'd be kind of cool if we actually went to Waterloo. I'm like, well, with my full-time job, I didn't know if it'd be possible. So I was looking at the schedule with, all my other coworkers, and I'm like, okay, I think I can make it work. So I put in the request for the time off, and then I told you, and you're like, great, let's do it. We talked to George, and the plan was for the three of us to go down together. So it was not just supposed to be you and I. But, things came up. Real life happens. Again, we love the podcast, but at the end of the day, it's a podcast. It's something that we do for shits and giggles. We do it for fun. We enjoy it. But George had some things that came up in his real life, and, real life that took priority. And we're not going to get into that. But he had to stay behind, and I think it was a wise choice. So you and I just decided, you know what? We're going to go down, and we were joined by one of our listeners. Jim came down with us, and we were like, let's do it. So we set up all the accommodations, talked to Troy, talked to Chad, and we did it.
Now, I know you and I on the way down talked about other conventions of this type, and I won't even say of this type because this is an entity by itself.
Right.
But I know you have gone to other wrestling fan gatherings in the past. So in comparison to those, what was this experience like?
It was more intimate. It was more casual, because the main one that the main one that I've gone to is WrestleCon, and that might be the most popular one. I know that Conrad Thompson, they've got StarCast, and that's great. I'd love to go to that. But the main one has been WrestleCon, and to me, It's huge. It's like a 2-3 day event where a lot of meet and greets, a lot of events going on. But the thing is, when you're there, Mick, you feel like you're just kind of in and out, and you're just a number, right? It's like autographs, pictures, boom, autographs, pictures, boom. There really wasn't any of that personal interaction that you get. And it had a same feel to it, but at the same time, I didn't feel like it was as formal as you would with a lot of these meet and greets. Because I mean, these big fan conventions, you might have 100 talents in there, and I mean, you could spend a whole day there. But here, it was the same thing, just on a much smaller scale. And for me, it was kind of nice. I like the WrestleCons. I appreciate all the work that goes into it, but you really don't you don't really feel like you're a part of something like I did when we were in Waterloo.
That's a great assessment. And what I would say to your point too, Chris, as far as the intimacy, when you go through the other conventions, and again, you're herded in kind of like sheep, and we're not denigrating them. I mean, I've gone,
not at all.
Now, they are what they are. And they're enjoyable. People love them. They get up close and personal with their stars. But in this case, in Waterloo, whether we're talking about Bob Roop or we're talking about, Colt Cabana, whoever it might be, you've got that one-on-one time somehow or other, unless your line is going out the door like it was for Trish Stratus, you have an opportunity to kind of schmooze with the wrestling stars and laugh and joke with them. And it's a small setting. And to me, that's the real appeal of this place.
Yeah, and I'm going to bring up a couple pictures here, Mick, because you mentioned one guy, and he doesn't need to be put over, but I'm going to put him over anyway. Your friend Colt Cabana.
Oh.
Because, if you've ever seen a Colt Cabana, I'm going to show one picture here, and it's not going to make any sense. But that is from 2015. That is WrestleMania 31 in San Jose. And that's me with my friend Ryan on the left, Jerry, Colt in the middle, my buddy Nate, and then me. We saw Colt at it was like a breakfast meet and greet. He's like, "Hey guys, give the camera person the finger." So we're like, "All right, just for giggles, we did it, had a good time." So we did that, and then when you and I, because you'd known him since your Steel Domain days, I'm like, "Hey, Colt, can I get a couple pictures?" I'm like, "The first one, can I do this because I'm like it means something to me." And wouldn't you know that I asked him for the same picture, and there it is right there. And for me, it's that interaction. And I know, I'm sorry if you're offended by the picture, but to me, it's like 2022 to 2015. He could not have been nicer. And we did take another fun picture, but it was that kind of interaction. And absolutely, you talk about a guy that gets it. I've never seen a Colt Cabana match that I haven't seen. And I got to tell you one story here. And hopefully, you guys will indulge me with this. I think it was back in 2016, the WrestleCon, as part of the WrestleCon Super Show. And it was their big show. And Colt was working this guy, Jake, the Man Scout Manning. And if anybody's ever seen him, he's just a grown man who has a Boy Scout gimmick. Hilarious. And he's got these really short shorts. And I was telling Colt the story, and I think you were standing right there.
Yeah.
And I think it started to resonate as I told him the story. I'm like, this, you might not remember this, but this is something that it just exemplifies the sort of guy that Colt Cabana is. That we were sitting ringside, and he was working with Jake Manning, and he was wearing these really short shorts. I mean, you could have seen Twig and Berries, like it was terrible. So we're sitting there, we're like, he wears short shorts. He wears short shorts. And Colt looks at us. We're like, he wears short shorts. Colt's like, who wears short shorts? He wears short shorts. And as I was telling him that story, Colt immediately jumped in on us. And he, as I was telling him that story, I think it like jogged his memory, because he just started nodding his head and laughing. And to me, that's the sort of interaction, to tie it back together. You don't get that if you don't have uninterrupted time with him. And maybe it was the Mick Karch factor that you knew him, but it's the ability to connect to these guys and tell them that, hey, I remember you just a few years ago, and it's still one of my favorite memories. And that to me was just one of the memories. So I'm sorry if I got a little long-winded with the story, but that's one of the highlights of the weekend for me.
Well, and Colt Cabana, we're not going to make this the Colt Cabana project.
Oh, no.
But I'm telling you, someday we're going to get him on our show, even though he's a big shot. He's got his own podcast, blah, blah, blah. But Colt Cabana, it's funny. Colt kind of has his detractors because of the humor that he interjects in his matches. But I'll tell you what, I would rather watch a Colt Cabana match, one match, than 15 matches on television with some of the stuff that's out there. So it was great to see him. He's always accommodating. And then, you go beyond that. You talk about my old buddy, John Nord.
Oh, my God.
Nord the Barbarian. What a character.
I just, this John Nord thing was another one of the highlights of my weekend, because we're getting into the elevator, right? And well, you tell the story, because I mean, you were the one that started it, and I was floored by the whole thing.
We get into an elevator at the hotel, and I'm looking, and I see a guy, and it's not John Nord. I see somebody that's with him, and there's a Nord the Barbarian t-shirt. So I kind of fixate on that, and I was going to tell the guy, hey, I love that shirt. Well, simultaneously as I'm looking, I hear, hey, Mick Karch. And I look up, and Nord the Barbarian. And there's John. And I hadn't, me with my great eyesight, the guy's 6'5" and 280 pounds, and I didn't see him, but I saw the t-shirt just to his left.
Yeah.
But John Nord, I've been friends with John for a long, long time, and we are going to have him on this show.
Oh, I can't wait. I cannot wait. When you had that interaction, and it was so cool, Mick, to see, because I told you going in, I made it perfectly clear. I don't know anybody. And you've been there, a lot of these people. I'm going to be your puppy dog. I'm going to be your hanger on. I'm going to be the guy that's like, I'm Mick's friend. I'm with Mick. I'm with him. You're him after this weekend. You're him. But the whole John Nord thing, it was hilarious. Just the interaction that you guys had. And there's one story, the story that he told us about the leapfrog. I'm not going to say it.
Yeah. Because he'll tell that on this show.
It was just, just running into somebody like that was just so hilarious. And I got to tell you,
he is.
Yep. He could not have been nicer or more complimentary to you or to us. And it's not the fact that they were talking about the podcast. It's Mick, it was a genuine friendship between you two. And I see all of those people. I'm like, it's just like a big get together. And that just absolutely was astonishing to me. But yeah, John, I was a John Nord fan before, but after meeting him this weekend, you guys, I'm telling you, that is going to be, cannot miss when John, I don't know when it's going to happen, but we've been in contact, and we're going to make it happen. So
we sure are. And he didn't slam anybody through a windshield.
He did not try and sell me a car, by the way. No, if you do, just make sure you make your payments.
Yeah, no cars, no windshields, nothing like that. And as far as, making payments, that's something that's totally foreign to me. But, so many other people that we saw. I mentioned Bob Roop earlier on, and of course our friend Rock Riddle. And, they used to say about Nick Bockwinkel, ask him what time it is, and he'll tell you how to build a watch. But with Rock Riddle, I'm telling you, this guy, the experience, there he is. Mm-hmm. There's you and the old rock star. Somebody said, is that Joe Biden? And I said, no, actually, that's Rock Riddle. But Rock is something else again. And he's
a hoot. He's a hoot. Oh, a lot of
great stories. But at any rate, I mean, so many people to meet. And I know the experience for you, Chris, was great. I've been down there, God, I don't know, several times to Waterloo. And I've been doing this for how many years? So if you're an old guy and you hang around long enough, you make these connections. And I can't say enough good things about so many people down there. Part of the weekend that I want to ask you about was the Impact Pro Wrestling Show. And Troy Peterson, Chad Olson, they work so hard all year long. And Troy, of course, promotes a lot of shows for Impact Wrestling. It's always part of this weekend. And another great show. Some of your favorites were on the card. So talk about that a little bit, the actual wrestling aspect of it.
I thought it was great. I know that we're talking old school wrestling, but again, I will say again that wrestling today, I don't think it's worse. It's different. And we saw it because I feel like the training is different. You see that the way that the performers, they go in, and their body language is different. Their moveset is different. And you know what? That's okay, because everything is in life is an evolution. Whether or not we want to accept it, it is an evolution. And I thought the performer, you could tell that they were working really hard. And I mean, there's some really, really good talents that they've got in Impact Pro Wrestling down there. I mean, I was absolutely blown away. And one of my favorites that showed up unannounced was Mike Bennett.
Yes.
And and you know me, I legitimately popped for Mike Bennett, because if you know Mike Bennett's story, it's not just the fact that he's a great wrestler, but the story of Mick. I believe in cheering for good people. Yeah. And Mike Bennett has gone through addiction. He's gone through substance abuse, and he's come out the other side. And I like Mike Bennett, the wrestler. I love Mike Bennett, the man, Mike Bennett, the husband, Mike Bennett, the father. And he stands for all of the right things in life. And that's why anytime you get a chance to see him and to have him a part of this weekend, I can only imagine, no pun intended, the impact that he had with the people in the back, because you get to see somebody who's been at the top. I mean, he's still a part of Impact, based out of Nashville or something now, with Scott D'Amore. So I think it's great. I loved it. And the whole card, what I love too is the crowd there. You had a young lady that was making her debut. You're going to be a little nervous. You're going to have some missteps. The crowd was very forgiving. Like, the crowd there was so respectful of the wrestlers. And sometimes that's hard to find. You have fans that go there and they want to be a part of the show. You've not done. People are going to make mistakes. People are going to do things good. People are going to do things bad. But I felt like the whole crowd and it was like the whole environment was just very positive, and I really enjoyed that. I really, really enjoyed it.
To that point about the crowd, I will say this about modern day wrestling crowds. As you said, especially the crowds that you see on television, they want to be part of the show. They want to hold up the signs. They want to chant. They want to point out very loudly when somebody has made a mistake. This crowd in Waterloo, it's a small town. Yes, there were people in from out of town. Yes, but they loved wrestling. They didn't have to be a part of the show. They were cheering on the athletes. Some of the athletes looked like they were really fledglings in the business. They needed that encouragement. And this crowd, they talk about an easy crowd. You pop for a side headlock. That was kind of what was going on. And that is so refreshing in this day and age. And so many great talents on the card. James Jeffries, of course, he is such a great talent.
Fantastic.
He absolutely is. I love James. He's always so nice and so cordial, and his wife is a sweetheart. It was just a great experience. And I wanted to point out about Mike Bennett, something, a guy you talked about, and Colt Cabana. And again, maybe this is just the environment. It's the show. It's whatever it is. But both wrestlers, Colt Cabana and Mike Bennett, made it a point to publicly put over their opponents, thanking them. These are young guys that are getting started in the business, and they're giving them the encouragement, and they're telling the crowd 2 years from now, 5 years from now, This guy is going to be a star. And I think, they didn't have to do it. Nobody twisted their arm to give these guys the rub, the compliment, but they did it. So I thought the whole show was just great. And, the whole experience about that was
very, very professional. Yeah. Very refreshing to have.
Let's talk about what we did in terms of the podcast symposium. That was really the main reason that we went down this time, was because Troy Peterson said, we'd love to have you guys be a part of this roundtable discussion about modern day pro wrestling podcasts. We were treated like gold. The fan response was great. Talk a little bit about that.
The first time that I talked to Troy and I introduced myself to him, I was like, hey, this is who I am. Obviously, I dropped Mick Karch's name because, whether or not you like mentioning Mick Karch, something like this, it gets people's attention. But I mean, it's like he knew about our podcast and, he was made aware of it. So it's not like I was coming at him from out of left field. And I didn't even mention I think I mentioned it. I'm like, hey, we do the podcast. I'm planning on coming down. What do I have to do to make accommodations in terms of just, getting the hotel and getting everything set up? And then he told me, he's like, hey, we got this podcast collective that we're doing. We'd like for you guys to be a part of it. And I was blown away. I'm like, here's a guy that I've only talked to for maybe 10 or 15 minutes. And he's like, hey, do you guys want to come down and, talk about your podcast, kind of tell everybody what it is that you do and why you do it. So, I mean, I was absolutely, when he offered the invitation, I was like, absolutely. So, you and I coordinated, and again, we had plans for George to come with us, but again, unfortunately it didn't happen because of, unforeseen circumstances. But we went down there, and I want to say there were maybe, 7 or 8 of us, 7 or 8 podcasts or so. But we got a chance to meet other people in the podcasting business and just got a chance to talk to a lot of really cool people and were made aware of their brand. But to me, being down there and being able to talk about it, it was so great. Like so many people had questions about the podcast. There were, and we'll probably get to this here in a minute, but there were a lot of people that already knew about the podcast. Yeah. They knew about it, but for us to be there and be able to kind of tell people about it was really, it was incredible, Mick. It really was. It was very humbling. I very much enjoyed the podcast where, they were very respectful. They gave us a lot of time, and there you can see, you and I think more of the wrestling related questions were to you. A lot of the technical questions were to me. Yeah. But I feel like we were given more than ample opportunity to talk about our story, and it was great. It was absolutely awesome.
One thing I would say about us and the other podcasts, and everybody I thought presented their product very, very well, explained what the gist of their show was.
This might be my favorite picture. I believe Sam was asking us a question.
Oh, yeah.
I love Mick. I got to admit, I think this is this is my favorite picture because I feel like, and Joyce Postain, I got to say Joyce did a great job with the pictures. Give her all the credit in the world. This was I feel about as good a picture as I've seen the entire weekend.
Yeah. And I think it kind of exemplified just how we felt about being there. The point that I was making about the podcasts themselves, and again, everybody put themselves over to the hilt. And these are great podcasts, some that I knew about already, some that I did not know. But what I did learn, and it's not even a learning process, it's emphasizing what I already knew, is that the podcast that you're listening to right now, ladies and gentlemen, the AWA Unleashed, has its niche. And its niche is, we're talking about an AWA that no other podcasts are talking about. I mean, that's what we wanted to do in the first place. Yeah. We're not going to ignore the new school by any stretch of the imagination. But the history of the AWA, nobody else is talking about it. And some of the questions that I got, and just listening to the others, and even the other podcasters, were paying really close attention to what we talk about, to what our subject matter is. So in that respect, it was just great. We had a very, very interesting question that was asked by one of the audience members about if you could have somebody on the podcast that you have not had already, who would you want it to be? And I didn't mention anybody specifically, but just kind of getting off on a little side note here, a little pit stop. I have said, and I will say this to our audience again, if somebody is going to be on our podcast, not only are they going to have at least some lineage, some link to the AWA, but we don't want anybody that is going to revise history. We don't want anybody on the podcast that is not going to be upfront and tell it the way it was, whether it was in a humorous vein or what have you. We're not gonna do that, because if we sit back and we let somebody kind of bullshit their way through, okay, if we sit there and don't say anything, then people are going to say, well, why didn't you call them on that?
It's a no-win situation.
It is.
And to kind of piggyback off of that, Mick, there are individuals out there. They're like, hey, why don't you get so-and-so on? Why don't you get so-and-so on? But believe me, there are a lot of people that we are working on, we're in communication with. Yeah. Some of them will work and some of them may not work. And it's all, I wish that we could explain kind of the reasoning why some people will and won't work. But yeah, just rest assured, to kind of piggyback off of your point, Mick, we see a lot of the names that people are talking about. And believe me, our text chain between the three of us is extensive about how we can try and get these people on without circumventing and compromising the integrity of the program. And that's going to be hard.
That's exactly it. And there are some names, and again, we won't mention them, and there's a lot of them out there that people will say, well, this guy would be a natural to get on the show. No, not necessarily. Because again, the gist of our show, without going deep into everybody's closet and revealing maybe the deep, dark secrets, we try to be open and honest. We tell stories that nobody else is telling. And I don't want to go head to head and call a guy and say, hey, you know what? You're bullshitting. You know, don't say that on the air because that's not true. You don't want to get adversarial with somebody, but the flip side, you don't want to sit there like, oh boy, you know, and listen to the BS. That's one reason. And I know we're getting off on kind of a tangent.
No, I mean, we still got, we still got about a half hour. I mean, we got plenty of time.
The other thing is about getting people on our show. And I promise you, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to get back to Waterloo. Another thing is some people, and I will not mention names, there's no need to, maybe feel that their star power or what used to be star power translates into, you want me on your show? I've been away from the business for 25, 30 years, but I'm going to charge you $1,000 if you'd like to use my name on your show. No, I don't think that's going to happen. We want people on this show who genuinely are happy that they were a part of the wrestling business, that want to tell their stories to the fans that are interested in not only their character, but the history of the business. So bottom line, if you're going to BS or if you're going to charge an arm and a leg, for the opportunity for us to put you over, it's not going to happen.
Well, I think the sidebar, Mick, I think it was important to take the 2 or 3 minutes just to kind of explain that, because I don't want people to feel like we're ignoring any suggestions. I mean, right. Yeah, we definitely see them. Logistically, some of it just won't work, and maybe down the road it will. But you mentioned we're going to live our life in this positive headspace, and we want this to be a positive experience. We don't want it to be chore. We don't want it to be a job. We don't want you to feel like you're obligated. We want people that want to be on here and that want to be a part of it, because I have a good feeling about this podcast based on what I've heard from people this weekend. They have a good feeling about it, and there's a certain vibe that we have, and we want to keep that going.
One thing that I would say too, Chris, and again, this again is piggybacking on exactly what you were getting across here. We want to keep the positive vibe. Too many people when they look at the AWA, and this would be your generation, unfortunately, I mean, in terms of, number wise, only remember the declining years of the AWA. Mm-hmm. They weren't there. They did not experience what the glory days of the AWA. They certainly didn't experience the backstage nonsense that was going on. So me personally, growing up, living and breathing AWA, I don't want the last 3 years of the AWA to be what people are fixated on. And that doesn't mean we're going to ignore it, because we're not. It was part of the AWA's history. There was a beginning and an end. So you can't ignore it.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I just want to kind of piggyback off of that. And this kind of goes into this weekend, that when we were walking around, there were a lot of people that are my age. I'm 47. And my experiences with the AWA were, mid to late 80s to the end. And to me, I don't look at that as being awful, because I didn't know it at the time, right? To me, that was wrestling. That was the AWA. I can look at it now and I can be like, okay, well, it wasn't great. I'm not going to look at it and say, God, I was piss poor. That was awful. It might be that to those that have a larger scope of it. But there were a lot of people this weekend, Mick, that stopped us and were like, hey, I listened to the podcast. I think it's great. Thank you for what you're doing. And a lot of them were in my age group. Like, there were a lot of people that are my age that are interested in this, which tells me that there is a certain percentage of people out there that do remember that era. And it might not, we don't remember it unfavorably. And I know that you might and others might, but we don't have the 50 plus years to hang our head, the 30 plus years, whatever. We don't have that time frame. But I was blown away by how many people stopped us this weekend, that my age group, and be like, man, I love it. I just, thank you for what you do. And so I feel like there are a lot of people out there that are more like me than what I realized.
Well, and for me, this is an opportunity to share whatever knowledge or whatever I've experienced with the AWA. It's hard for me to reconcile that the AWA has been closed down for as long as it was in existence.
Well, you did it. Yeah, you did it though. Let's be honest. You were the one that did it.
It's crazy to think that the AWA ran from 1960 effectively to 1991. That 31-year period, and we've been shut down for that same 31-year period. So, and there's not a lot of history about the AWA talked about. And there's a guy, I want to talk about him. Thank you for putting that picture up. That is Chris Owens. And if fans have watched the WWE series on the Lost Treasures, and, when guys are trying to find their merchandise or whatever else, he is the purveyor of the greatest Andre the Giant wrestling memorabilia collection, far and away. It's not close. This guy, he's got his own museum of the real, honest to God, collectible stuff.
It's incredible. It's incredible what he's got. Like,
beyond belief. And he's been a friend of ours, a friend of mine. I've known him for a few years. But I'm glad you put that picture up, because we want to kind of single him out for a second, because in the responses that people have put up on Facebook and social media about our presence at the Waterloo Hall of Fame, Chris was so incredibly complimentary, not only to George and I, to yourself, to the podcast, and he says, he listens to any number of podcasts, and we don't want this to be a pat on the back session for us, but Chris, I can't thank you enough for your kind words. You get it, you understand what we're trying to do, and talk about being put over by a guy. Mm-hmm. We couldn't ask for more than what Chris gave us.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're all, the thing is, like, everybody that was there, right? We're all in the same community. We're all fans at heart. We have different things. And you mentioned that Chris has got, it's incredible the amount of knowledge that he's got about Andre and all of his memorabilia. And to be able to connect with somebody like that was also, I mean, there are stories like that abound from the weekend in Waterloo.
Yeah, it was absolutely great. And again, Chris, thank you so much for putting us over. We really, really appreciate it. And so many of the people that we saw down there were
Absolutely.
so complimentary. So now we're going to go on to what I think was a screw job. If you thought that the Montreal screw job was something, I'm talking about the trivia contest. I mean, we can laugh about it now in hindsight.
Okay.
But I don't know. I don't know how many teams were involved in this trivia contest that they had at the Best Western Bar for the big conference after the matches. But there was a trivia contest, and we were entered in, and it was you and I and Jim Pouquet and Joyce Poston and Woody Perkins.
Mm-hmm.
And the questions were I would say 99% of them, 99.9% were modern day questions.
Yes.
And we held our own. And, for this old fart here, I did pretty well answering the modern day questions. There was one question about the AWA in that whole, couple hours we were there. But somewhere along the line, I think we got screwed. Now, there was a point tally. I'm not sure where or who the judges were, but we finished in second place. Normally second place, hey, that's great. Win, place, show, whatever. But I think our reputation, there we are. There's the number 2 team.
We're number 2.
We are number 2. You're damn right, and a proud number 2.
Mm-hmm.
And and it's not that the prizes were lacking.
You said proud number 2.
There was a $20 gift certificate to the museum, which I graciously handed to Joyce.
Mm-hmm.
You got a koozie, I believe, out of the deal.
Visor and a shot glass.
Visor and a shot glass.
Yes.
And we got a koozie and a $20 gift certificate to the museum. That's not bad. That's great stuff. But I'm telling you, somewhere along the line, somebody was doctoring those numbers, because I'm quite sure that we won, except for that one effing question. How many times has the WWE 24/7 championship changed hands?
I mean, it's not even a real. It's not even a real title. It's not.
It's not even a real title, and it's like pick a number between 1 and 1,000. It's just like that question absolutely set me back on my heels, plus the question that they threw in there: who hosted Saturday Night at Ringside in Minneapolis back in the 1980s? That was a ringer question. And
I can't believe you didn't even get that one right.
I didn't get it right. And how's anybody going to get it right? It's such an obscure moment in time. Some clown, some dweeb, some troll or gnome, some little gnome having a good time on television back in his own hometown. But anyway, all kidding aside, the trivia part was just great. It was another portion of the Waterloo Hall of Fame that I can't encourage people enough. They do it every year. Waterloo's an awfully warm place to be in the summertime, especially if you're going in that hallway between the convention center and the hotel.
Yeah, we didn't go near much water in Waterloo. Let me say that.
No.
I thought you were going to talk about the young lady that decided that she was going to chime in and wanted to be part of our team.
Oh yeah, we'll give her a mention. There was a lady sitting a couple of tables from us, and her competitive juices were on.
They were flowing.
Yeah. She did not like the fact that we were getting answers to the trivia question correct, nor did she like the fact that, how dare you text your wife, Chris Tubbs, in the middle of this trivia. So Chris is texting his wife to see how their daughter is doing at home and everything else, as a good husband and father should. He's checking in. And this behind us, you're cheating. You're cheating. You're looking up the answers on Wikipedia. Well, first of all, Wikipedia doesn't have the right answers. Secondly, you know what? Sit down and shut up because we knew the answers. The woman had the audacity when I turned around and looked at her to say, this doesn't concern you. Turn around. You know what? It does concern me. And it's not going to be so easy to get me to turn around. And damn it, we finished number 2. Where did you finish?
And I will say that there was one where the one AWA question was, what was the parent company of the AWA?
Correct.
I think you might have been the only one to get that because you and Joyce immediately knew it.
Uh-huh.
And I think, I think she was barking at us over something like that. And I think like several of us looked at her, we're like, the company was on his paycheck. And I think you were like, I worked for the company, but she had no idea. Like you knew it because you worked for them. And the great thing was like the next day at the podcast symposium, guess who's sitting in the front with the AWA? Bing, bang, boom. So I don't know. Not that I wanted to bury her, but lady, you gotta know,
well,
take a seat. Sorry.
And for those who are wondering, the parent company of the AWA, of course, was the Minneapolis Boxing and Wrestling Club, which we got right. I think her answer, Dairy Queen, was not correct. So that may have been.
Yeah, she knew a lot about Dairy Queen. See, now there I go, not living my head in my head space. So
it was great, and you know what? Let's give a quick shout out to our bunkmate and our buddy Jim Pouquet, who came along for the ride. Not only a great wrestling fan, but my God, you talk about a Minnesota sports fan aficionado.
Oh, dude, totally.
Oh my God! So it was great having Jim with us, and again, sorry George couldn't make it, but like you said, real life sometimes gets in the way.
Yes. Now,
my question to you is, are you planning now that you've had the experience, your virgin voyage to the Hall of Fame, you're going to make it an annual event?
Well, I mean, I have to now. It was so good. It didn't hurt too much. So, yeah, I have to go down again. But no,
I see what you did there.
Yeah, I will definitely. I know that and I saw that you were talking to somebody on Facebook that the weekends have a tendency to change. So I'm definitely going to try and block off when I find out when the dates are. And I feel like we kind of have to, right? I mean, after this year, I feel like we have to go down again. And I would love to go down again. I would absolutely. I didn't get to stick around for the banquet, which I'm a little bummed. But again, real life, that's why I was texting my wife during trivia, because I had things outside of that I was dealing with too. So I will definitely go down again. If you're willing to ride shotgun, I'll go down there again.
You know what? And I guess we were remiss at the very beginning. We should have kind of explained the Hall of Fame itself. You've got 2 wings. You've got the amateur wrestling wing of the Hall of Fame, and then you've got the professional wrestling wing. And of course, this was more about the pros. But you go into that museum and you look at the memorabilia, and I mean, this is collectible stuff. This isn't wrestling magazines from the 1990s. You're talking about their old ring robes and autographed ring bells and championship belts and the real deal. It's like under lock and key behind glass. This is the whole experience was just tremendous. Looking forward to. I encourage everybody, if you have a chance to go down there, please do. You will not regret it. Especially when you walk in there, it's like you finally made it to the land of Oz. The Emerald City all of a sudden opens up when you go there. One quick story I want to tell about our friend Baron von Raschke. Baron, of course, was there. And I'm telling you, I don't know of anybody at his age that is still as popular as he was 30 years ago.
Oh, people love Baron.
Oh, my God. Everywhere we go, every wrestling event, when the Baron is there, people gather around him. He's the Pied Piper. But at any rate, and the Baron has a very dry sense of humor. For those who don't know the Baron personally, he's not the gruff shouting, that's all the people need to know guy that you see on television. Baron's a pretty soft-spoken guy. So I believe it was the day we were leaving, and this was in the morning, and I see Baron. Mm-hmm. He's over by the elevator. He's kind of meandering a little bit. So I assumed that he was looking for where the breakfast area was. And I tried to be helpful. You know me. I mean, that's me. Helpful is my
you're all about everybody else. You're not.
I am. I truly am. I mean, benevolent, almost to a fault. But there was a sign pointing to the breakfast area. And I said, Baron, the breakfast area, you go right down this hall. And Baron says, well, thank you, sir. How long have you worked here?
I had to turn my head because I just about burst out laughing.
Baron von Raschke. So between the Baron and John Nord and Rock Riddle trying to sell me a matchbook cover with his image on it, it was quite the weekend. And again, everybody, I encourage you, go down there, enjoy it. Thank you to everybody involved. The hospitality that was shown to us, second to none. Thank you.
Yeah, I do want to say that here's one, and Charlie Thesz, Lou Thesz's widow, and one of the names that's on there. You talk about somebody who was just super gracious and super thankful that we were down there honoring and remembering, her late husband. It just was absolutely, it was incredible to see the outpouring and the appreciation from people, Mick, that we got. But here's another one that I want to go ahead and see if I can bring it up here. When we first got there, I'm not really nervous, but I'm like, okay, I don't really know what to expect. Within about 5 minutes of walking into the bar, we see this individual. And right then and there, that put me completely at ease because she remembered you, she remembered me, and it was incredible. Like seeing Barbara Goodish right out of the gate, with JJ Dillon, got a chance to meet him and his daughter, and it was such, that put me at ease. So the people that are there, Mick, are so welcoming, and I think that's kind of to go back to maybe tie it all together. It really was a different experience, and it's thankful that you're there because you're honoring history, and it's hard to replicate that sort of environment when you've never been in it before.
What I would say people don't want to replicate if they go down there. Mm-hmm. You do not want to replicate going into Joey's, scarfing down, between 18 and 20 slices of pizza and breadsticks and a couple of Pepsis, and then going back to the hotel and trying to go to sleep. Not good. Not good at all. I mean, in the first place, my stomach was so expansive that somebody asked me, well, ma'am, when are you due? The other part of it is I had enough gas where I could have gotten us back to Minneapolis, on a quarter tank.
I'm aware.
Oh, yeah, you kind of did suffer through that. But
yeah, we did. But in your defense to all that pizza, you did have to get your money's worth. And by the way, you know why you had gas? Because it wasn't 7th Avenue pizza. If you would have had a 7th Avenue pizza, that is the best tasting frozen pizza on the market. And you
tell me about it. Tell me more about 7th Avenue.
You can cook it in such a way that it doesn't even taste frozen. And I mean, believe me, I'm a huge fan. I've got Body by Pizza, okay? BBP, right? Body by Pizza. That's what I have. But again, you check it out. Their Lucky 7 it's a chef's kiss. They've got a meatball and pepperoni. I mean, the best thing to do is actually have a 7th Avenue pizza, wear your AWA Unleashed shirt or, anything from Soda Stick, because I'm, repping Soda Stick right here because it's good quality shiznit. And it's great. I mean, that is the best way to enjoy AWA Unleashed. So, yeah, 7th Avenue pizza. I guarantee you, if you come over to my place and you have 7th Avenue pizza, you won't feel the way that you felt after Doughy Joey's.
I've never been.
And no disrespect to Doughy Joey's was great, but it's no 7th Avenue pizza.
I've never been invited to your place. I know you live in a gated community, and I see the sign as I'm approaching there, off the highway, Chris Tubbs, Esquire, and all of a sudden there's a police presence and everything else. You can't get near your joint. I mean, seriously, nobody.
No, it's the big CT on the gate, and I mean, I've got Jeeves outside, and I mean, if you need
Jeeves.
Yeah, that's what I call him. If you got a question, you can ask Jeeves.
Oh boy. Well, have we sufficiently BS'd our way through about 50 minutes of this program?
Yeah, 51-ish,
I loved it, and again, ladies and gentlemen, thanks to everybody at the Hall of Fame. Thank you, Troy and Chad and everybody involved. Becca, it was outstanding. So, couple of shout outs, huh?
Yeah, let's do the shout out here, buddy boy. You go first.
My shout out is to a good friend, Woody Perkins. And Woody has the honor and the distinction of being a close personal ally and partner to Joyce Poston, the world's greatest wrestling photographer. And Woody is such a quiet, unassuming guy. When we're sitting there tossing our bullshit back and forth, Woody's on the other side of the table, just a little smirk on his face, just watching us.
He's minding his own business, yeah.
Yeah. So, Woody, great guy. Your wife is beyond. So, thanks, guys.
Yeah, she is absolutely awesome. Yeah, Woody, he didn't say a lot, but then again, when you've got, you and me and Joyce and I mean, it's kind of hard to get a word in edgewise.
Absolutely.
Because we're a bunch of big mouths, but I mean that in the nicest way. I'm going to go with Matty Montcalm. I just met him for the first time this weekend. He's at Wrestling W Class on Twitter. Dude's absolutely phenomenal. One of the nicest guys I met. He was always coming up with a handshake and putting your arm around you, saying, "Hey man, how you doing? What's going on?" You could not get away from him, but it was in a good way. Like, he was everywhere. And you talk about a guy that loves the business and loves to talk about the business, and is just one of the most enjoyable, positive people to be around that I met the entire weekend. Maddie, man, you're, as the kids would say, you're the bomb.com. It was great. And I can't put him over enough for just if you didn't know where you were at, if you didn't know what was going on, you saw Matt always had a smile on his face, and you knew that you were going to be fine. No matter what, even if you didn't, you're like, I don't know what's going on here. You know what? I saw Matt. Everything's at ease. So
everything's at ease. And I had mentioned Joyce a second ago, when you and I have talked. We have got to get her on this podcast, and we will. She grew up in AWA country in Davenport, and talk about official photographer. She has a collection of some of the greatest wrestling photos that she took from ringside and in the locker rooms and, restaurants, whatever. And she's going to share those with us, hopefully somewhere down the road on this program, because it is just, it's phenomenal. And so is she. And to everybody, once again, thank you so very much. I'm just getting over the Doughy Joey. I'll be all right.
That's the best picture I think she's ever taken, by the way.
Well, it very well could, except she probably could have cropped that guy in the blue shirt out, and probably made it,
Yeah, here.
Worth something on eBay.
That looks better that way. Okay.
Thanks for agreeing with me. That about it for today, pal?
I think so. So next week we've got a fun little in the next couple minutes. We've got a fun little thing going on in the next couple of weeks about tag teams. But I do want to tell you as well, I mentioned Soda Stick.
Yeah.
You guys, if you haven't gotten your AWA Unleashed swag, definitely do, because we've got the white T-shirts that have the blue and the red. If we're not sold out, we're getting really, really close to selling out, you guys. So I'm being serious. I'm not going to be like, limited time offer. No, like when these are gone, they're gone. I don't think we're going to be making anymore. So once these are done, the first run limited edition T-shirts are going to be gone. SodaStickCO.com, AWA Unleashed. You can look at that. And also because, I mean, let's be honest, we're only a couple months away from, fall. So if you're looking for, something comfortable to wear, you can get your personalized hoodie. You can put your name, whatever you want, your gimmick, just put it on the inside, actually on the outside of the hoodie. Again, use the promo code Unleashed for 15% off. So you got that. So we get Soda Stick. I mean, you can wear your swag, you can wear your hoodie, you can wear your T-shirt, have some 7th Avenue pizza, sit there and watch AWA Unleashed. And coming up over the next 3 weeks, we're going to be dealing with tag teams.
Yeah.
The next week is going to be tag team champions. And I'm going to ask, we already did a show on tag teams, but these are going to be about tag team champions from 60 to 74. After that, it's going to be 75 to 90. And then the week after, Mick kind of tell us in about a minute or so who we've got to kind of tie everything together on our coming up in 3 weeks.
Well, we actually have several people, but one guy that we're going to talk about was part of the Texas Hangman, and that is our good buddy Mike Moran. And I wanted to get Mike on the show. In the dying days of the AWA, the Texas Hangmen were a shining light, along with Blue Maninas. They were right up there, and Pat Tanaka, Paul Diamond. Mike is a great guy, and he started out as an enhancement guy in the AWA using the name Mike Richards. And then, of course, he evolved into putting on the hood and becoming one of the Texas Hangmen. He's going to be a great guest.
Yeah, and to go along with it, this is going to be particularly special for me. I've told you why. And when Mike comes on, you guys are going to know why that episode is going to be very, very personal to me. You'll find out in 3 weeks. Till then.
Wait a minute. By the way, it just hit me. What we should have done for that trivia contest.
What?
The screw job. We should have called in Earl Hebner.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. You screwed up the screw job.